School bully lays hands on the wrong black girl. 10 seconds later, he never expected this explosive happens. Picture this. You walk into school like it's any other day. The halls are filled with chatter, friends greeting each other, the usual noise of lockers slamming, and the sound of footsteps echoing in the hallways. But today is different. Something is about to happen that will change everything. And trust me, you'll never expect what comes next. It's a typical school day. Students rushing between classes, moving in and out of the crowded hallways. The air is filled with the hum of conversations, the laughter of friends, and the occasional scuffle as someone bumps into a group passing by. You can see all kinds of students here. The athletes with their varsity jackets, the scholars buried in their books, the quiet kids sitting alone, and the groups of friends chatting about the latest drama in their lives. The school is a mosaic of cultures and backgrounds, each student adding their own unique piece to the puzzle. You've got kids from different ethnicities, different countries, different ways of life, all coexisting within these four walls. Some walk with confidence, heads held high, while others move through the hallways more cautiously, hoping not to draw attention to themselves. It's a place where friendships are formed, but where tensions can also simmer beneath the surface. But what happens when one person decides to test the boundaries? What happens when the wrong student is pushed too far? Someone who won't back down. In this video, we're going to explore how one bully made a grave mistake by targeting the wrong person. You'll witness how this explosive moment unfolded in a way no one saw coming. So stick with us till the end. You won't believe how quickly everything escalates, and trust me, you don't want to miss how it all plays out. She stands tall, not because of her height, but because of the presence she carries. In a crowd, she doesn't fade into the background. Her every step is measured, purposeful, like she's always walking towards something greater. It's not arrogance, but an unshakable confidence that radiates from her. She knows who she is, and she's never afraid to show it. Among her peers, she's known for more than just her sharp mind. It's the way she speaks, clear, assertive, with an intelligence that's impossible to ignore. Whether she's acing her assignments or taking on a group project, she commands attention not because she demands it, but because it's earned. She doesn't need to boast, and yet her achievements are impossible to overlook. There's a calm strength about her, something that makes others turn their heads when she enters a room. The respect she receives from her classmates isn't something that can be easily shaken. She's the one people come to for advice, whether it's about schoolwork, relationships, or just life in general. Her words carry weight, not because she tries to impress, but because they're grounded in experience and wisdom. And while some students might try to blend in, she stands out, not just because of her intelligence, but because she carries herself with an authenticity that others respect. It's clear that her confidence comes from within, from knowing that she doesn't need to fit into anyone else's mold. In a world full of noise, she's the calm in the storm, and everyone knows it. He moves through the halls like he owns them, a swagger in his step that's hard to miss. His reputation precedes him. Everyone knows who he is. He's the one with the sneer on his face, always surrounded by a group of friends who laugh a little too loud at his jokes. But his laughter isn't always for the right reasons. It's often at the expense of someone else. He's been in the spotlight before, not for his academic achievements or athletic prowess, but for the way he picks on others. The quiet kids, the ones who keep to themselves, the ones who don't fit into the typical social mold. They're his favorite targets. It's not always physical, though that's happened more than once. His words cut deep, leaving scars that aren't visible to the eye. He thrives on power, on knowing he can make someone feel small with just a few choice words or a well-timed shove. He's built himself up on the backs of others, and in his mind, well, this makes him untouchable. His confidence is rooted in fear. His ability to intimidate those around him is his source of power. He's at the top of the social food chain, or so he thinks. Among the jocks, the popular kids, and the kids who crave his approval, he's the king. Everyone else is just beneath him, there to be manipulated, controlled, or humiliated when he sees fit. He doesn't care much for the rules, school policies, respect for others. They're all just obstacles in his way. He's always been able to get away with things, and he's never had to answer for his actions. In his world, he's the one who makes the rules. And anyone who dares to challenge him quickly learns that in his eyes, there's no room for defiance. He's used to winning, used to getting what he wants, and he's certain that this day, like all the others, will go exactly the way he expects. He never even sees it coming. It starts with a simple comment, a laugh, a sarcastic remark. Nothing new for him, really. The bully scans the hallway, eyes searching for someone to pick on, someone to remind of their place. Today, his target is easy. She's walking down the hallway, her head held high as usual, completely unaware that he's zeroing in on her. He doesn't care that she's never given him a reason to be anything but respectful. In his mind, it doesn't matter. No one is untouchable. He steps in front of her, blocking her path with that familiar sneer on his face. "What's with the attitude?" He smirks, his voice dripping with mockery. His friends chuckle behind him, knowing exactly what this moment is about. Another opportunity to tear someone down and make themselves feel bigger in the process. He's been able to break people with far less, and today he's sure it will be no different. She doesn't flinch. Instead, she raises an eyebrow, her eyes sharp but calm. The silence between them stretches just a moment too long, and for a split second, he wonders if she's going to walk away. But she doesn't. Her voice when she speaks is steady. "Move," she says, her words firm, yet unprovoked. He laughs again, leaning in closer, pushing her space further. "Oh, you think you're tough now?" The words are barely out of his mouth before he shoves her, just enough to make a point, just enough to test her resolve. It's a typical move for him, a show of power, a way to remind her, and everyone watching, that he's in control. But what he doesn't see coming is how quickly she reacts. The moment his hand touches her, she steps back with a fluid motion, her hand catching his wrist and twisting it, pushing him off balance. He stumbles, eyes wide in disbelief. For a second, the hallway goes quiet. His friends stop laughing, the weight of the moment settling in. She doesn't yell, doesn't make a scene. She simply stands there unwavering. Her eyes meet his, not with fear, but with quiet defiance. And in that moment, he realizes, too late, that he's picked the wrong person. The hallway suddenly feels smaller, the air thicker as the bully steps closer, his eyes narrowing. His friends are watching, their faces eager, waiting for him to make his move. He's not done yet. He's never done until he's won. Without warning, he shoves her again, this time with more force, pushing her against the row of lockers. The clang of metal echoes through the hallway, and for a moment it feels like time slows down. His face is inches from hers now. In the smirk he's always worn slips into a sneer. "You're really going to make me do this, huh?" He spits, his voice low and threatening. She stands tall, her chest rising and falling with calm breaths, refusing to let fear show. She doesn't back away. She doesn't even flinch. The students around them begin to murmur, some stepping back, unsure of what to do. A few of the braver ones pull out their phones, hoping to catch whatever drama is about to unfold. Some are just watching, frozen in place, unsure if they should intervene or just keep their distance. The tension in the air is so thick, you can almost feel it pressing down on your chest. But then, the bully's hand shoots out, grabbing her arm, pulling her closer. He's trying to intimidate her, to force her into submission. The crowd goes quiet, the laughter from earlier replaced by anxious whispers. This is the moment where most would break, most would give in. But she doesn't. Her eyes lock onto his, and there's something in them, something steady, something unyielding. The smirk on his face falters for the first time, replaced by uncertainty. He's used to this, his grip on her, his power in the situation, but something about her presence starts to shift the balance. The surrounding students are holding their breath, waiting to see what she'll do next. The bully's grip tightens for a split second, but instead of shrinking back or reacting with fear, she steps forward, breaking free from his hold with a fluid motion. In one swift movement, she twists his wrist, flipping the situation on its head. The sound of his surprised grunt cuts through the tension, and the crowd gasps, some even taking a step back in shock. His expression changes from smug to stunned. a flicker of realization crossing his face. This wasn't going according to plan. The bully's grip tightens, but it's the last mistake he makes. Without hesitation, the protagonist shifts her weight, her body fluidly moving in a way that catches him off guard. Her hand snaps up, grabbing his wrist in an almost effortless motion. There's no panic in her eyes, no hesitation, only the calm focus of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. With a quick twist of her body, she spins, pulling his arm down and twisting it behind his back in one smooth, practiced movement. His face contorts in pain, his breath catching as he tries to fight back. But it's too late. Her hold is unshakable. He stumbles, off balance, completely at her mercy. The students around them are frozen, wide-eyed, caught between shock and disbelief. The bully, the one who's always been in control, is now the one in a vulnerable position, struggling against her firm grip. Her movements are swift and precise, like she's done this 100 times before, and maybe she has. Her calm demeanor doesn't crack, even as the bully's pride begins to crumble before her. The crowd's whispers grow louder, murmuring, "Did you see that?" Eyes darting from one another, unsure of what to make of it. This wasn't the outcome they were expecting. They thought they'd see the usual, another victim cowering in defeat. But instead, they're witnessing something different, something powerful. The bully's face reddens as he realizes he's completely powerless in this situation. His own strength now turned against him. He's no longer the one in control, and the more he struggles, the more he slips, his movements only tightening her hold. She adjusts her stance, making sure he's fully immobilized, and the entire hallway falls into an uncomfortable silence. She doesn't scream. She doesn't taunt. She just holds him there, her grip unwavering, until he can do nothing but stand there, humiliated and helpless. The power dynamic has shifted, and it's clear now. She is no longer someone to be pushed around. For a moment, the bully stands there, stunned, his arms still trapped in her grip. His eyes are wide with disbelief, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts as he tries to regain control. The crowd watches, a mix of stunned silence and whispered comments buzzing in the background. The hallway, once filled with chatter, is now eerily quiet, every eye on them. The bully stumbles back, trying to pull away, but her hold doesn't loosen. His face turns a deep shade of red as he grits his teeth, his ego crushed in a way he's never experienced before. His usual bravado falters, the bravado he's worn like armor for years suddenly shattered. For the first time, he feels weak, vulnerable. He jerks his arm free with a sharp, desperate motion, backing away from her, his feet awkwardly skidding on the floor. He doesn't look at her, not now. He can't. The pride he usually wears like a shield is gone, replaced with something else, embarrassment. He casts one last, quick glance over his shoulder, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and humiliation, before he retreats down the hallway. His friends now too stunned to follow. The students around them begin to murmur, their voices low but growing. "Did you see that? He actually backed down. She flipped him like nothing." Some are still trying to process what just happened, eyes darting between each other in disbelief. A few of the braver ones pull out their phones, quickly typing away, eager to share the moment. Others stand frozen, as if they're waiting for something more to happen, but the moment is already slipping away. The tension in the air is thick, but it's no longer about the bully or his taunts. It's about what just happened. The girl, the one who no one expected to stand up for herself, had done it. She had flipped the script in a way no one thought was possible. The murmurs continue, but this time, they're not about what she'll do next. They're about how the bully was forced to retreat, and how the quiet girl who once went unnoticed just changed everything. Within moments, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes through the hallway as teachers and administrators appear, drawn to the commotion. One of the teachers, a tall man with a stern expression, quickly steps forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "Everyone, step back. Now," he commands, his tone leaving no room for argument. The students begin to disperse, some still whispering about what they just witnessed, others uncertain about the consequences that are sure to follow. The bully is standing by the lockers, his face still red, his posture stiff with humiliation. His friends linger nearby, looking around nervously, but they know better than to speak up. The atmosphere shifts. No one's laughing now. The teacher approaches the bully first, his gaze cold and unwavering. "We need to talk," he says firmly, guiding him away from the scene, his hand on the bully's shoulder, pushing him toward the principal's office. As the bully walks away, the principal, a woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense attitude, arrives, her heels clicking decisively on the tiles. She scans the hallway with a sharp eye, noticing the scattered students who are still watching the scene unfold. Her first move is to turn to the protagonist, who has remained composed through it all, her back straight and her gaze steady. "Are you okay?" The principal's voice is gentle, but there's authority behind it, a reassurance that the situation will be handled fairly. The protagonist nods, her calm demeanor unchanged. She doesn't need to say much. The principal offers a small, understanding smile before turning to the teacher who had intervened earlier. "We'll take care of this," the principal says, her voice carrying the weight of someone who's been in this situation more times than she can count. "We don't tolerate bullying of any kind here, and we will make sure this is addressed properly." She glances at the students, some still lingering, before adding, "Everyone needs to return to class." Now, as the crowd begins to disperse, the administrator looks back at the protagonist. "Thank you for standing your ground," she says quietly, her words laced with genuine respect. The protagonist nods, her expression still calm. There's a sense of finality in the air now, a recognition that things have shifted, not just for her, but for everyone who witnessed it. The bully might be heading for consequences, but the protagonist, in this moment, has already won the respect of the school. In the days that follow, the ripple effects of the confrontation are felt throughout the school. For the bully, the fallout is swift and unforgiving. His once unshakable status as the top of the social hierarchy begins to crumble. No longer the loud, confident figure he once was, he finds himself increasingly isolated. His friends, the ones who had once laughed along with him, now hesitate to be seen with him. The respect he once commanded feels hollow, replaced by whispers and sideways glances. His reputation, built on fear and intimidation, quickly unravels as students, teachers, and even his former followers begin to distance themselves. The principal's promise of consequences is fulfilled, and his actions don't go unnoticed. Detentions, meetings with parents, and a sense of shame that weighs heavier than any suspension. His world, once filled with power, is now filled with the bitter taste of defeat. Meanwhile, the protagonist's life takes a different turn. Her actions that day do not go unnoticed by her peers, and her quiet strength becomes something people admire and respect. No longer just the smart, quiet girl in the back of the classroom, she becomes someone everyone talks about. The whispers around her are no longer about how she blends into the background, but about how she stood her ground, how she made it clear that she would not be intimidated. Her classmates, once dismissive of her, begin to look at her differently. She becomes a symbol of resilience and power, her presence a reminder that courage can show up in the most unexpected places. For her, the incident becomes a turning point in her personal growth. The confidence she displayed in the face of adversity becomes a foundation she continues to build upon. She realizes that her strength isn't just in her intelligence or her ability to remain composed, it's in her capacity to stand up for herself and others when it matters most. She begins to speak up more in class, offer advice to others who are struggling, and forge new friendships with those who admire her for what she did. Her reputation grows not just as a student, but as someone with an inner strength that commands respect. The long-term impact of that one moment is felt by both of them, but in very different ways. The bully, once at the top, finds his place in the social order dramatically altered. The protagonist, however, emerges from the ordeal stronger, more confident, and with the respect of her peers, a quiet force that no one will ever underestimate again. In the wake of that day, the lessons become clearer. Standing up against bullying isn't always about physical strength or grand gestures. Sometimes it's about knowing your worth, remaining calm in the face of aggression, and having the courage to say, "I won't let you push me around." The protagonist's actions remind us that the quietest person in the room can have the greatest power, and that power doesn't always come from loud confrontation. It comes from self-respect and the willingness to stand your ground when it matters. What's also revealed is the importance of building a culture of respect and support within a school. It's not enough for students to be told to stop bullying. They need to see how standing up for others can create lasting change. Witnesses to the event, whether they were too scared to step in or simply unsure of how to respond, learned a powerful lesson that sometimes silence can be as harmful as the act itself, and that stepping forward, even in small ways, can shift the balance in unexpected ways. The power of community, too, becomes clear. When students, teachers, and administrators work together to foster an environment where bullying isn't tolerated, it creates a space where everyone can thrive. It's not just about punishing the bully. It's about creating a culture where kindness and respect are the norms, and where students are empowered to be the best versions of themselves. In a supportive school community, the actions of one person, the courage to speak up and stand tall, can spark a change that affects everyone. It's a reminder that while bullying might still happen, it doesn't have to go unchallenged. It's not about being a hero in the grandest sense. It's about doing what's right, even when no one expects it. And in the end, it's that very courage that can shape a school and the world into something stronger and more compassionate.